Well, welcome back, everyone, to Los Monsteros Zoo. If you guys are new here, welcome for the first time. My name is Leaf, and it's always so great to have you guys here, especially for this exhibit in particular. Now, today we are actually building for the Nilgai, which is probably one of my favorite artiodactyls in the entire world. It's otherwise known as a blue bull because of how statured the male looks. These guys are absolute beasts, and they are very representative of Indian wildlife, and I really want to have these guys in Los Monsteros. Now, of course, I really want to have these guys in the wet zone, and, well, like the wet season, not really the dry season, because these guys are more so found in kind of like rainforesty kind of areas and stuff like that, and just more so covered forests and whatnot. So I really want to have a lot of stuff with that come into play, and it actually worked out perfectly. So in case if you guys don't already know, our India section is based on the seasons of India. In fact, that's why I think the name is officially going to be. So I'm going to have like a nice cleanup episode where I go through the entire thing. Maybe we have a little bit of a tour with it after that. Maybe I could put up some signage and stuff referring to like the seasons and whatnot. But what I am trying to get at is the fact that this kind of sums it up perfectly and leaves a nice conservation message at the end. Now, I don't know if any of you guys have ever been on Kali River Rapids in Animal Kingdom. Essentially, it's kind of like this Asian kind of themed area, and it has this big message about deforestation and conservation through the ride. So you kind of go up to the top of the mountain and you see a bunch of trees cut down. Essentially, I kind of wanted to convey the same message through a little bit more storytelling. For the time being, I'm just kind of working on the rest of the habitat right here, using a lot of faux rocks. I should probably talk about what I'm actually doing, but I wanted some kind of separate areas from the guests so they could actually look upon these animals, not getting too close to them. I wanted to make sure that was a thing to have. I kind of have the glass be a little bit too big over here, but we do kind of lower it in the end because the guests wouldn't really want to jump over the fence and right into the water. Nilgai are kind of aggressive animals. They are huge, so you probably don't want to mess with the males in particular. But no, I really want to make sure our guests stay safe first and foremost. Now, essentially getting back to Animal Kingdom. Oh my gosh. Let me know in the comments if you guys have ever been, because you can probably tell so much inspiration from this park took place from Animal Kingdom. But okay, enough stalling, Leaf, let's get back to brass tacks. Essentially, Kali River Rapids has this little environmental deforestation kind of message on it, and I want to have that be conveyed not really through a ride, but through visuals and kind of like storytelling. So essentially, later on in the build, when we actually do get there, we kind of have this whole deforestation setup, kind of talking about like, you know, what happens to the forest after it becomes deforested and like what you can do to help, essentially. I even have this little bit of a kind of like, you know, a little bit of an interactive feature about how trees, when they're cut down and their roots can no longer grow, can't really support that much moisture in the soil. I'll actually point that out when we get there. It was just a really fun kind of like environmental storytelling kind of thing that I really wanted to throw in here. And that's essentially what I really want to focus on throughout this entire zoo. Also, in case if you guys don't already know, I know some people are very confused by this, Los Monsteros is going to kind of be a San Diego high-budget National Zoo, Omaha Zoo, kind of like Animal Kingdom, higher budget kind of zoo. Mainly drawing inspiration from Animal Kingdom, but taking inspiration from these other high-budget places as well. So essentially what we're doing is working on the India section first. In case if you guys don't already know, I like to build my exhibits first and entrances later. In some cases, I never build the entrances, like with Riverbend. I should honestly probably do that today now that I think about it. But no, kind of moving throughout here, just adding as many pieces as I can to make this feel as lush as possible. So I'm taking a little bit of pointers from the start of the entire Seasons of India trek with these kind of raised planter beds using the faux rocks. I really love NDP's faux rock set, and it comes off so beautiful in areas like this. And we even have another plexiglass viewing area right there where you could actually get relatively close to the Nilgai. And we're also mixing in some tropical rocks to make it feel a lot more wet if that makes sense. Feel a lot more moist in here. The savanna rocks on their own worked pretty good as making like these nice little bumps in the ground, but I felt like using the tropical rocks would be a lot better in terms of, you know, color variation and stuff like that. I thought that came into play really nicely, but essentially moving on throughout here, just adding as many pieces as possible to make this feel as lush as we possibly can, and also adding enough guest areas so that our guests have a nice little place to sit down. I do plan on having a small little takeout restaurant, like a grab and go kind of place, right across the street from the Gario's Gar and the Nilgai, kind of like in this area that we're building right here. I kind of do start on it in this episode, but I will go back to it later down the line. Our next episode is going to concern Blackbuck and Indian Rhino. If you guys are part of like the Discord servers I'm in, if you're part of the Reddit, you can actually see the finished project right now, but the episode will later come at another date. Thankfully, it'll, you know, we're in the new season, so I don't really need to worry about getting too many videos out to you guys, but we'll still have more content to cover every single day, so I'm very excited about all that. Also, oh my gosh, I'm so excited for the DLC, guys. I don't know what it is by the time that I'm recording this, but it's going to be so freaking fun to finally get back into that whole news cycle again. Moving on through here, what you can probably tell is I'm using these raised kind of walls as a way to convey a little bit more of a sense of privacy in these areas, maybe a little bit more like noise canceling, because this would be kind of like in the middle of a relatively crowded area, you know, with like, you know, when it comes to having a large food area, it tends to get pretty loud sometimes, but having these small kind of blocked off sections really does help to convey, I don't know, it really does help with noise canceling. That's why I really wanted to make sure of over here. Have these nice little inlet areas that, like, you know, you could have the whole family there and, you know, the kids can go wild a little bit, but it won't really disturb anyone else trying to, like, you know, make it through the zoo with, like, you know, not worrying about kids or whatnot. So what I'm also doing over here is just adding some more faux rocks. I love the naturalistic look in this habitat. You can probably tell that I do have this kind of like, you know, kind of ricochet, not ricochet, but kind of like ragtag kind of building back there. I wanted to have the actual holding facility exposed a little bit because I do want to eventually turn that into like a logging facility, just as a way to really sell that deforestation vibe over here. Hopefully I'm working with one of my buddies who can actually speak translate logging camp to Hindi. So I'm not sure if I have any other like Indian viewers out there, so if you know how to translate that, let me know in the comments so I can make like, you know, a nice little sign. I would love to do that. That'd be really fun, like storytelling for this entire area. But essentially moving on from that, adding as much plants as possible. I have not used the Scavelovia bushes in so long, but ever since I upgraded my PC, they look so freaking beautiful and I can't get enough of them, so we're using them a lot in this area. And I'm also using tree guards, in case if you guys don't already know. Some animals will like to kind of butt against trees and really tear them down. Essentially this really happens with like a lot of hoof stock and whatnot. When they do rub themselves against some trees, it kind of does break up the integrity of the tree, and it kind of wears it down over time. And speaking of wearing down, I am also adding those decals right there. Really happy with how well this came out. But essentially, tree guards essentially prevent that so that you can still have your beautiful trees and beautiful canopies in the end without having to worry about the animals really ruining it over time. Also adding as many faux rock walls as I possibly can. I really do love the kind of vibe of this area over here. It really did turn out super well and I'm so happy with it. We're also adding this little bit of supports down below. It's nothing too crazy. It's relatively like, you know, boring, I would say, but it does help to sell a little bit more color in the area. I know I really struggle with adding color into my zoos. I'm really trying to get out of my comfort zone with that a little bit more. I still do love like the whole tan look of my zoos. I think it it's pretty charming, I'm gonna admit. So essentially that's what I'm going for right over there, and I'm very happy with how well it's turning out. But moving on throughout here, doing a little bit of curb work. I'm not sure how much of this I actually had recorded, because I know it's relatively boring work, and you guys pretty much know how it goes, so we're already done with it. There we go. Also adding the actual logs for the logging camp. Really fun stuff to add these. I never use the Planet Zoo logs like that, or not, they're not even Planet Zoo logs, they're the base game logs. So I never actually use them kind of like how they're intended, so it was really fun to actually just get that going over there. And here's that little bit of an erosion kind of thing I was talking about earlier. So you can see I'm working with both the flower bed and the exhibit terrarium floor right there, and I'm essentially kind of lining it up right there just to make sure that we have this nice kind of like diagram of how it looks. And I also use the decals to really indicate how like moist the soil can get, if that makes sense. And I'm also adding pipes up here. Maybe there'd be like a button for you to press when water does go down. And then you see, like, you know, when you don't really have that many roots in the soil, the retention doesn't really happen for, like, you know, water in the ground, and it really dries up areas. And that's what I really wanted to convey with the habitat itself. I really wanted to make sure that it really conveyed that, you know, over to the right, it's not really that deforested, so you do get a little bit more green, as well as the previous exhibits that were extremely green. But towards the end, it does get a little bit, you know, sparse. It gets a little bit more dry. And I think that pays off extremely well for really summing up this entire area. And I'm really happy with how well it came out. I do apologize if you guys do like builds in order. I'm not really your kind of guy for that. I don't know if you guys have been able to tell, but I kind of build whatever I feel like. And whatever hits me with the most amount of inspiration. So be it with that, I really kind of like bounce in between the dry and the wet seasons. This one is the wet season, just to reiterate. The next one is going to be one of our last dry season habitats for now. I'm not sure if I'll expand later down in the future in case if we do get some more Indian animals, but essentially that's how it's kind of lining up to be. Also adding some enrichment and, like, you know, habitat stuff for the Nilgai over there, just to make sure that they're satisfied, make sure that they're happy. Always making sure to include enrichment in my habitats now, because it's a really fun thing to include. And now we're actually working on these little scenes, mini dioramas, if it were. So I'm essentially using some blueprints from the workshop. I do apologize, I forgot who made that excavator. It is on the workshop though, so definitely go look up excavator to find that one. But I really want to separate these with the most amount of foliage as I possibly could. So I'm using my tried and true prairie cordgrass and golden bamboo technique to really sell this nice forested, kind of dry looking area. And I think it perfectly sells it. So we have like the little scouting area for, like, you know, the logging camp and whatnot. And I kind of sum it up really nicely with the tree in the middle, which would be the kind of tree you would see get cut down for either timber or palm oil or something like that. I'm not really sure what it would be. I just really want to have this be kind of implied, if that makes sense. So we do include that right there. And we also add some more palms throughout here because, hey, what's a San Diego build without palms? I also include the barrel. By the way, using the new free build mod, you're able to kind of turn barrels upside down so they look a lot more realistic. You don't have that gap in the top, so that's really awesome. Also including some kind of barriers over there just to make sure that guests don't go over there. And we're also including a bunch of trash around here, because when you do have these kind of like logging camps and stuff like that, a lot of the time they're illegal, and a lot of the time they don't really clean up after themselves. So I'm really making sure to sell that right there. And we also have these blinds over here just to make sure that, you know, you never really know what's happening in there. But I do apologize, I didn't get the last one in there because it took me a while to actually make, and just seeing me fumble with pieces wouldn't make for that interesting of a speed build. But I do want to stop and thank you guys as we do enter the cinematic shots for another awesome episode. You guys are always awesome in the comments down below. Always do love reading you guys, like, all your experiences with all these. So it's really freaking awesome. I have said awesome more than enough right now. All that being said, I'm gonna leave you guys here. Thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate you guys stopping by. If you did enjoy, be sure to hit that little like icon, hit that little subscribe icon if you do dare. It's free and it always does help out me as a creator. So I do want to thank you guys one last time before I end this video. Enjoy the rest of the cinematics, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care and have the most wonderful of wonderful days. Bye-bye now.